The knock came just as I was pulling off the blazer that still smelled like airport lounges and bad coffee. I hadn't even set my laptop bag down when I heard it. 3 firm raps, not tentative, not uncertain, like whoever stood on the other side believed they belonged here. That alone made my chest tighten. My apartment building had layers of security. Visitors didn't just show up unannounced, so when I peeked through the peephole and saw Joelle standing there with Vernon just behind her, arms folded like a human warning sign, the breath in my lungs seemed to evaporate. Joelle's lipstick was too red for a weekday afternoon, earrings too bold for a drop-in visit. Vernon's expression hadn't changed in over a decade, an exact replica of the man who once tried to erase me with indifference. I opened the door but made no move to let them in. "Marin," Joelle said with that breezy "I'm your mother so I get to be here" tone. "Can we come in? We need to talk." I didn't say yes, but Vernon stepped in anyway like he owned the place, and Joelle followed like this was some casual reunion instead of a silent earthquake. I closed the door behind them slowly, deliberately. No one was offered a seat. Vernon cut to the chase. Always the man for efficiency when there was something in it for him. "We heard about your new role. Director of Strategic Systems, right? Sounds like you're doing well." His voice carried that artificial warmth I'd learned to spot before I hit high school. "Cleo and Asa are starting college this fall," he added, "and with tuition and everything, it's tight. We figured you might be in a position to help." I didn't respond immediately. There wasn't even shock in me anymore, just a hollow familiarity. Of course, that's why they came. It wasn't about pride in my accomplishments. It wasn't to apologize for disappearing when I needed them most. It was because I was finally financially useful. Joelle tried to soften the pitch. "They've worked hard, Marin, just like you did. You know how things are right now." She wore that saccharine tone, the one people reserve for asking favors they don't think they deserve but want anyway. And Vernon? He scanned the room like he was running a mental inventory of my possessions, my success. What got me most wasn't their shamelessness, it was how unsurprised I was. My body had braced for this before my brain had fully registered what was happening. I didn't yell, didn't cry. I didn't even ask them to leave. I just stood there with one hand still on the doorknob like I needed the grounding of cold metal to stay steady. They didn't notice my trembling hand. They never noticed anything about me that wasn't convenient. The irony is, there was a time when Joelle did see me. Before Vernon, before the twins, before silence replaced ritual. We lived in a tiny apartment above my grandmother's garage. Joelle worked 2 jobs and still made it home to eat microwave mac and cheese with me cross-legged on the couch. She'd read from paperback she could barely keep her eyes open for. I'd nudge her shoulder when her voice slowed, whispering, "Keep going." And she always tried. Our world was small, but in it, I mattered. Back then, love was a warm towel after a bath, a hand that reached for mine in a crowd, a voice that stayed even when the body was exhausted. Then came Vernon. At first he was quiet, polite, harmless really. I was 9, too young to name what I felt, but old enough to know something had shifted. He didn't yell, didn't hit. He just changed the atmosphere. Slowly, dinners stopped being shared moments and became routines that passed in silence. Joelle started laughing more, but not at my jokes. The couch became off-limits. The books gathered dust. I remember asking her one night if she remembered our stories. She looked at me like I'd mentioned a dream she couldn't quite recall. I started fading from her attention, like wallpaper, present, familiar, and invisible. When she announced she was pregnant with twins, I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt, hoping it meant our family might find new joy. I wanted to help. I started babysitting for neighbors, stashing away tips in an envelope marked baby fund. I picked out names, practiced lullabies, told myself love could find its way back. But all it did was show me how easily I could be replaced. As Joelle's belly grew, the space I took up in her life shrank. Conversations shifted permanently toward nursery colors and baby names. My schoolwork went unnoticed. Our movie nights vanished without comment. I remember bringing home a test with a perfect score, holding it out with a flicker of hope, but she barely looked up before murmuring, "Good job," and returning to whatever baby blog had taken over her attention. One afternoon, I came home to find my bookshelf half cleared. My bed scooted to the corner to make room for boxes of onesies and diaper packs. Nobody had asked. Nobody thought they needed to. I was 13, and the last flicker of belonging was fading like a light bulb that had been flickering for years. On my birthday that year, I waited all day. No cake, no card, no acknowledgement. Just homework, chores, and a family dinner where no one mentioned the date. That night, I lay in bed, tears soaking silently into my pillow. Joelle remembered the next morning only because Nana Ruth had called. She handed me a dollar store card and kissed the top of my head like it was a favor. "Sorry, honey. I've just been tired." I nodded. I always nodded. After that, I stopped waiting to be seen. Stopped expecting. Vernon became more vocal then, not about concern or care, but correction. "Don't talk with your mouth full. That tone is unacceptable. You need to be more helpful." But he never asked about school. Never asked how I felt. Joelle started living in a different orbit, one where the twins were her sun and everything else was shadow. Including me. When the twins were born, my presence in the house felt more like an afterthought. They got the best of Joelle, her laughter, her attention, her joy. I got what was left, if anything at all. I watched her rock them to sleep with a softness I hadn't seen in years, her smile bright and effortless. She hadn't just become a mother again, she had become a completely new one. One night, over dried chicken and instant potatoes, Vernon called me into the living room after dinner. Joelle stood behind him, arms crossed. She didn't look me in the eye. "Mar," Vernon said, calm and rehearsed, "things are getting difficult. The babies need more space. Joelle needs more rest. We think it's best if you stay with your grandmother for a while." The words hit like a backhand, but no one raised a voice. I stood there in the doorway, still holding the dish towel I'd used to dry the plates. "Just until you get on your feet?" I asked, more out of habit than hope. Vernon nodded once. Joelle said nothing, just stood there, distant, already mentally rearranging the house without me in it. I packed slowly, a few shirts, my school books, a photo of me and Nana Ruth from the fair, cotton candy sticking to our fingers. I left everything else, my art, my journals, a hand-folded paper star I'd made for Joelle that Christmas and found weeks later stuffed into a junk drawer. No one walked me out. Joelle opened the door and let the air in. Vernon didn't speak. I carried my backpack across 3 blocks of cold pavement, too numb to cry, until I saw Nana Ruth's porch light glowing like a signal. She opened the door before I even knocked and wrapped me in the kind of hug that didn't demand explanations. "Oh, baby," she whispered, pulling me inside like she could fix everything with enough warmth. My Aunt Simone was there too, holding a blanket, already knowing, already ready. Life with Nana Ruth wasn't easy, but it was real. Their love came without strings, but also without wealth. They were retired. Bills came in thicker envelopes than paychecks. I could see Nana flinch every time she opened the mailbox. So I got a job. Sunrise Diner, a 6-minute walk from school. I worked weekends, holidays, after school, refilling coffee for regulars who barely noticed my name tag, wiping sticky change after every shift. I didn't complain. I didn't tell anyone. I just worked. Simone packed lunches and slipped in notes that said, "Keep climbing," or "I see you." I kept those notes in my apron pocket like talismans. Senior year, I applied to 5 colleges, mostly out of curiosity. When the first acceptance letter arrived, I opened it in the diner's back room, sitting on a stack of potato sacks. No one saw the moment. No one cheered. I just sat there, staring at the words, "We are pleased to offer you admission." Then came the hard part, figuring out how to pay. Even with scholarships and Pell Grants, there was a gap. I needed a co-signer for a federal loan. I remember drafting the message to Joelle, rewriting it 4 times before I hit send. "Hi, Mom. I got into a few schools. I'm trying to make the aid work, but I need a co-signer. Would you be willing?" She replied the next morning. No greeting, no congratulations, just, "Sorry, we're saving for Cleo and Asa. Hope you understand." I stared at Joelle's message until my eyes blurred, not from tears but from the exhaustion of expecting something different and still getting the same version of her. No questions, no pride, not even a delay in saying no, just a flat, transactional rejection, as if I were a stranger selling something she didn't want to buy. When I told Simone, she didn't flinch. She just nodded slowly, like her heart had already prepared for this moment. "Okay," she said simply, sliding a mug of tea toward me. "Then I'll do it." I blinked, unsure I'd heard her right. "You don't have to," I began. "I know," she cut in, "but I want to." The next day, she signed the paperwork. No hesitation, no speeches, just a steady signature that felt more like a promise than any word Joelle had offered me in years. And just like that, I was going to college. It wasn't glamorous. No fairy lights in dorms or pumpkin spice traditions. It was hustle and grit. Ramen in bulk, secondhand textbooks, part-time gigs that bled into midnight study sessions. I taught myself to code watching hours of YouTube tutorials. By sophomore year, I was managing an online store for a small flower chain, processing orders at night and debugging code during breaks. I lived on caffeine and determination. Every now and then, Simone would send me a little emoji in the middle of a shift. A sunflower, a heart, a cup of coffee. She never said, "I'm proud of you," outright, but I could feel it between every wordless gesture. When graduation came, it wasn't a grand affair. I had on borrowed shoes and a gown that didn't quite fit right. But Simone was there, front row, blue dress, eyes already brimming with tears before my name was called. I didn't scan the crowd for Joelle. I'd stopped waiting by then. Simone snapped a photo of me holding my degree in one hand and a granola bar in the other. "Proof," she said, beaming. "You made it." After that, I moved to Asheville, found a small apartment with good light and quiet neighbors, and started a job in logistics. Nothing flashy, but it was mine. I built a career the way I'd built my life, one small, deliberate piece at a time. I had no interest in going viral or getting applause. I just wanted peace, stability, and enough herbs on the porch to remind me that things could grow where they were nurtured. Every so often, I'd peek at Joelle's life online. Cleo and Asa's birthdays, vacation photos from beaches I was never invited to, proud captions about their achievements. It hurt, at first. Then it dulled into something more like observation than pain. And then one day I stopped checking. Not because I forgave, but because I had nothing left to look for. Life went on. I made friends, took walks on Sundays, sent Simone lavender tea and thank you notes that never said enough. Until last fall, at a cousin's baby shower, when Simone casually mentioned a project I'd led at work, and I saw Joelle standing nearby, overhearing every word. She didn't speak, just watched me with a strange glint in her eyes, as if realizing too late that the child she'd cast out had grown into someone she could no longer ignore. 3 days later, she and Vernon showed up at my door. Just like that, as if a decade of silence could be undone with a knock. They stood in my apartment, uncomfortable but determined. Joelle said it again, the thing I'd already heard on the porch. "We heard about your new role, director. You've done so well." Vernon stepped in. "The twins are in college, great schools, but it's expensive. We thought maybe you could help." The word help tasted sour, like it implied an obligation, like I owed them something. Joelle added, "It's what families do, support each other when they can." I looked at her, truly looked, and saw the woman who had once been my whole world and chose to walk away. "You weren't there," I said quietly, "when I needed a co-signer, when I graduated, when I begged for help." Joelle frowned. "You're being dramatic." "No," I replied. I'm being honest. Vernon scoffed. You're not married, no kids. What are you doing with all that money? I turned to him. I'm spending it on peace, on therapy, on a life I built myself. Joelle's face shifted, her tone hardening. You're being selfish. I exhaled slowly. No. I'm being healed. The room fell into a hush. I walked to the door and opened it, not angrily, just with finality. They hesitated, then Joelle walked out. Vernon muttered something under his breath and followed. I closed the door behind them. Not slammed, just firm, grounded. The next morning I drafted one last email. No venom, just clarity. Joelle, I am not in a place emotionally or otherwise to support your request. Please do not contact me again. Marin, I sent it. No fanfare, no announcement. Just peace. Later, I made a donation to the community college that first took a chance on me. I typed under purpose, scholarship for first-generation students without a cosigner. I named it after Nana Ruth. She'd never touched a laptop, but she gave me the foundation to stand on one. That afternoon, I went to water the lavender plant Simone had given me when I first moved in. Its stems leaned toward the sun, thirsty and patient. I poured the water slowly, watching the soil drink it up. And I smiled. Not because someone was watching, but because this life, this quiet, hard-earned bloom, was finally mine.